Good morning, good morning. Hope everyone's well. Weekend stream. Australia here, one day ahead. Sunday, the 19th, I think it is, of March. As usual, if you're here live during the stream and you would like to ask me a question, if you're live, make sure you add 3 yellow circles before something you want directed to me that I may be able to answer if it's civil, like this. Put an example here, put 3 yellow circles, and then put your comment down. Otherwise, feel free to just talk amongst yourselves. So, the last video, yeah, I spent a long time doing it, in case it wasn't evident by all the editing, but it was a lot of fun. As I was explaining to my friend last night, it was one of those things where I did a section of the video. It was very much scripted, and it was sort of tightly done. And then I edited a certain section that I was really, really happy with, but it stood out too much as being sort of too polished and too edited. And I thought, I'll do a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, it's like just shining the front of your car and washing it. You got to do the whole thing. And so I just did what the video deserved. And it took as long as it took. So it was about a week and a half wait, but I think it was worth the wait because the video is doing fairly well. It's only been a day and I've already got about 5,000 views, which is nice. You want a little bit, you want your effort to be rewarded a little bit. Otherwise, there's no point sort of trying to get it out. You might as well just keep it in your notebook. Anyway, hope everyone's well. Hi to all the regulars. Hi to Boffin, Crummy VCR, Martial Arts, Oriental Medicine. How are you? Couple of newbies. David P. Quaz, how are you? Yeah, Quaz says this. It's funny how going your own way can be the gateway to relationships. Of course it can be if that's your way. Well, I mean, when you look at the liberating aspect of all the discussion that guys have about going their own way and standing up for themselves and you know, looking life squarely in the eye and being real and honest about things, I mean, part of life is other people around you, who you choose to interact with, what kind of life you decide to intentionally curate, you know, who you now reject, and you just kind of just don't go along for the ride on other people's crazy train like you did before because that was the only party happening. So it's funny how a lot of life unfolds in terms of enjoying aspects that before you were kind of bitter or annoyed about or you couldn't quite get right. So it's just about adjusting life and taking responsibility for where you want to be and where you don't want to be. And we talked about this a couple of years ago, Quaz, when we went through that period of really talking intensely about ethics and living by them. And I think that just so many people wish and knew. I think a lot of people know what the right thing to do is if you really sat down and talked with them one-on-one. But it's just safer and much more fun to reside in the circle discussion of, yes, we all agree what the right thing to do is, but I feel comfortable that no one's taking the leap of faith and we can all sit here and plan the perfection of one day. It's kind of like the dopamine hit of the carrot of tomorrow, like one thing, you know, what we're waking up for tomorrow. You know, it's starting that diet on Monday. It's the same sort of thing I feel with a lot of people. And it's very hard to say, well, I love being with you guys. I love the anticipatory dopamine effect of looking forward to that diet on Monday, but I'm starting today. Like, I'm tired of recycling the same Groundhog Week. I want to start living that inspiring Monday. Like, I'm tired of it being last Monday and the Monday before and the Monday before that, and I feel like a fraud because all I'm doing is talking about it with you guys because I don't want to lose my friends. You know, we love our social circle. And sometimes a lot of guys I've noticed in the manosphere, they feel like you're abandoning them because you're deciding to go your own way a little bit. You're saying, hey guys, I'm still your friend. I still want to talk with you, but let's not kid ourselves. We all have our own lives to live, and we can, reconnect as friends. But I think that a lot of guys, in this weird way, they replace all or nothing, intense, dysfunctional relationships with a horrendous chicky poo, and then they replace it with, a more comfortable thing that it's the same sort of intense, all or nothing little kind of cage. You're caged with an awful girlfriend, and now you're caged with a good bunch of guys. And caged is probably not the right word, but you understand what I'm trying to say with the metaphor. The whole point of going your own way used to be freedom. And there are some guys who are going their own way, and that the way they speak and how they can talk with you, regardless of your life's not the same as theirs. You could tell they've got no hang-ups. They're fine with their lives, whether they're monk, whether they're whatever, And so I think you can tell with the way a person's talking. There's a way a person talks that's so righteous that it's a bit close-minded. And I'm not saying you need to be open and transgress your boundaries. I'm not, if you know what your ethics and your boundaries and morals and values are, that's fine. But you shouldn't sort of really be defensively afraid of other people's point of view. The degree to which a lot of people I notice online get really annoyed and angry at an opposing point of view, rather than kind of laughing about it. And I've noticed my kind of people, and Quaz is one of them, where if someone were to, I'm pretty sure if someone were to say to Quaz and mention something that he wholly disagrees with, his first reaction would be to laugh. And he would just disagree. Whereas a lot of people's reaction, who frankly, I really can't get along with very well, and I can't relate to, is they get annoyed as though you're insulting their mother, or you cancelled Christmas or something. I don't know. It's just interesting. But yeah, the last video I made, had a lot of fun making it, and it was largely about taking ownership. And I've largely found, how many times I've said largely a couple of times in the last 5 minutes, I've found that the more I take ownership for as much as possible and not do the easy cognitive trick of offloading it to someone where it's just too easy to excuse them as being at fault. Yeah, lay blame on a wretched female that she did the immoral wrong thing and you didn't deserve it at all. But be fair about the interaction. How were you in that scenario? Were you perfect? Did you deserve it? No. Maybe you did a bit. Maybe you didn't say what you should have said. Maybe you let it go for too long. That's a big problem with guys. So I think the more honest we are, being the third person observing the situation with you and Chicky Poo, I'm giving the example because that's something most people can relate to, or I can't even think of a simple word, they're familiar with. So the more real and basic and honest and observantly fair you can be and objective in the situation, I'm annoyed in this situation with Chicky Poo, right? Let me step back and be a fair elder arbiter of this situation and look at the situation. Yeah, you could have said this, human. She was wrong. There is a better way to adjust that conversation between the two of you where it would be more moral and fair and balanced, whether you need to adjust or whether she does. And I'm not saying a lot of times that the other party isn't almost completely at fault. But if we're part of the relating aspect, if we're part of that soup, let's not discount how much of an ingredient we are and how much we absolve ourselves from being a key ingredient in that soup. I love my metaphors, don't I? Anyway. So, again, if you'd like to comment about any of these recent videos, especially this latest one that's getting a lot of traction and a lot of comments, let me know your thoughts. It's basically about extreme ownership, but objectively responsible ownership. Unless there's a very good reason, an objective, very good reason to really lay complete blame on the other person, try to take as much ownership as possible, because the net effect of it, I found, even if it's more than you have to, right? You don't have to take too much, but you don't have to go the David Goggins way, right? You know, people look at extreme examples, caricatures of good morals and ethics, right? He's got good morals pushed to the extreme where they become a cartoon and they're not relatable. You have to be a very, very specific type of person. And then all of us also you can discuss whether it's dysfunctional to be that extreme. Obviously, in his personality, and I respect the guy, it's largely a coping mechanism from where he didn't like being. So there's a lot of people that just kind of go black to white, similar to Eckhart Tolle. He was a one personality, then overnight he switched to another personality, and they're very entertaining. It's kind of like watching Batman and the Joker. They're very potent, different archetypes. As an example, for the good things in being extreme like that, and the bad things, and what it tells us very clearly. But I think we need to just lean more on the side of extreme ownership, practically based, because the net effect of that ends up being that you feel like when you start taking more ownership for everything as much as you can, your first reflex is to own the situation, own the decision. It's your decision. I open my mouth. Hang on, what do I think? No, my opinion matters here. Me. So it's not just because a lot of guys understand you exist when you're treated unfairly, but they don't reflex the muscle of ownership of themselves in the conversation. What do I think? No, let me own this for a second. I hold everything that happens and comes across in my life. And then, is it for me? Oh, hang on. No, it's for them. But you process everything, you. So that's part of my view of the responsibility of taking that kind of ownership, because you keep reflexing the muscle of, let me deal with it. Let me deal with it. What can I do with it? I can discard the hot potato or the hot mess, or I can say, well, I can be better. I've just noticed my life improving, becoming more stable. I'm in much more control of my life. There are things you can't control, like, surprise illnesses, passing away someday, things like that. People in your life that you love and care about, they pass away, difficulties arise. But the degree to which people just absolve themselves of having the control to give themselves sort of tranquility in their lives and stability and routine, I just don't understand it. Then they complain about it. It's like, oh, there's no free will. Yes, there is. You are relinquishing a lot of your responsibility that translates into the free will, and just will you could have if you decided to. Anyway, end of introductory rant. If any of you guys have a question, remember, if you're here during the live stream, make sure you add 3 yellow emojis. Okay. Big Ol says, hi, human. For the first time in 5 years, my old father figure will call me today. We haven't spoken. I left him without saying goodbye. I'm trying to be still in the present moment. Advice. Well, it sounds like it'll be a good moment. That to me would, if I was in your shoes, it would be something that I'm looking forward to and anticipating. Finally, pulling the trigger on doing the right thing feels good. When you pass that point, when you put on the seatbelt and go off the cliff of what you know you should do, it's actually a good thing, because there's no going back. The anxiety and the eggshells is of continually not kind of jumping off that point that you should. I've said it before. The best way to face fear and do the thing you should do, but you're just kind of stopping yourself because of fear and nothing else. It's not a rational deterrent, but you're still the 5-year-old just looking for comfort and using your adult brain to lexically make an excuse for just staying still and staying safe and repeating yesterday that was just kind of vanilla. And you're just tired. You just letting time pass too much makes that sort of, you miss the boat. You let too much time go past and you can't get it back anymore. And then you start becoming a guy in your winter years that's looking back on your life with regret. And the only way you can cope with it is to come up with blame games. we've mentioned this in men's spaces a lot. A lot of guys talk about these women who rightly, they squander their fertile years, their beautiful years where they kind of, acted like wretches in the schoolyard. They kind of treated guys badly. They thought they could do better. They just traveled and partied and just ruined themselves. And then later on, rather than admit the responsibility of, well, you did that, you wasted that time, you said no to a couple of really good guys because you weren't ready or you just wanted to party and keep your options open and have fun. It's the equivalent of that person who doesn't want to diet until they get to their 50s and the doctor diagnoses them with diabetes and they've passed the point of no return. And now it's just kind of do the best with what you can with medication and subsistence with, we're going to make your life comfortable. And, unfortunately, the prognosis isn't good. And it's the equivalent of, this old cat lady and swallowing that bitter pill. Hard truth, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but the sooner you can be responsible and say enough going through McDonald's drive-through, I know it tastes good. We need to sort of deal with these situations like adults. You go through McDonald's drive-through once a week or as a treat every now and then, but if it's your regular diet saying, well, I'm young, my body can handle it, yeah, before you know it, you blink and then you're like 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're still going through McDonald's drive-through, and it's too late now. The damage may have been irrecoverably done. Quaz says, indeed, we all live within a bubble of our own reality. This is inevitable. The essential value of relation is to get a quality second opinion. Yes, I was talking to Karu last night about this. The amount of guys that pompously and egotistically in a macho way, because they were treated badly by a narcissistic, solipsistic, wretched female, rightly so, right? I'll agree with you. They say, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to flip it on its head. I'm going to be the one. There's got to be payback. I've got to balance the equation. So in balancing the equation, I'm going to feel good about giving some of that back to my ex, to the next girl, who by the way, doesn't deserve it. Your ex did, but either you don't have the courage to, or it's probably useless to go back to your ex and waste more time getting back at her and balancing those scales, because the only equation to be balanced is with your ex, not offloading it to the next person and then blaming all women and then them as a consequence getting the experience of the wretched you and then blaming all men. So the bad cycle just continues. But I agree with what Quasimandias said, but I was talking with Caro about this and I said, all these guys, if you don't learn from your mistakes and pick better outcomes, or pick better paths to the outcomes that you prefer, that is, you start relating better to get better relationships, then you become sort of this guy who's always defensive. You don't really learn from your mistakes. You hit rewind and you repeat old memes. You're living in the past, the pain moment, right? And you're going forward, never wanting to relive it, rather than developing a philosophical suit of armor that will always protect you from that ever happening because of your attitude. And that's right. We're talking about a lot of guys. The thing that's holding us back from a lot of our happiness as guys is simply our attitude. And a lot of guys who are still stuck will say, oh, what are you saying, human? I should just forgive the train wreck women out there and let women walk all over me. No, that's the kind of the unnuanced you that is not looking at what you've learned, not facing what you're afraid of. I'm saying that your attitude, it's kind of like the Matrix thing, when I think it was the Oracle said it's kind of like being in love. You either you are or you aren't, something like that. I'm paraphrasing and butchering it. But unless you're real about knowing where you sit and how you feel, you know what's on your mind. You know if you can't sleep at night. You know when things don't make sense and what irritates you. How can you get rid of the irritation where you're not living in a neurotic bubble with a bunch of other spurgs online like hating the world, right? It feels good to cathartically live that way for a short period of time. Sometimes, like when you've just come out of being traumatized, you need that for a period of time, just like you need certain things. but sometimes they're very acutely needed for a short period of time. Living in that space is like being in acid. So, and a lot of these guys, they know better, and then if the world gives them, they get the luck of a good woman passing in front of them. All the things that you complain about women being and the way women treated you in the past, you get this woman that's the complete opposite. And it's everything you wish you had. You wish you met this girl before you got destroyed by the world and women. Like you wish you met this person before. You get them after, and you treat them like crap. It's like, what do you want? Like, if you want the scales balanced, you're getting them and you're doing nothing with it. Anyway. Yeah, like sometimes, like with the guys that push back on me very, very heavily, one, I wonder why you're even watching my channel. I don't know what you're getting out of my videos other than the enjoyment of like slinging mud at me. You're wasting your time. Like, spend your life somewhere that you enjoy spending it, on some other channel. But secondly, like if you're interested in relationships, you don't have to have my exact opinion, but if you're interested and you really want to make the way you relate to people, and especially your intimate ones in your life, better, you need to be honestly, objectively, and also subjectively responsible about them and how you insist on ethically doing them from now on. You have to. And then everyone who's kind of says, yeah, but, dot, 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 and they come up with a lot of scientific and ontologically accurate rebuttals to me, you have to get to the point in saying, I don't care. Because I'm making a personal decision. They're informed by science and ontology, but this is about a personal, subjective relationship that I have to curate and understand what I want for myself. I can talk with you, but don't arm wrestle your sterile opinions onto kind of the richness of what I'm trying to curate into my personal life. I'm trying to kind of really narrow the focus of what kind of friend is for me, what kind of woman may be for me if she crosses my path, so that I can clearly judge her as being so. The saddest thing I see, and I saw it with myself until I started to shake my own head and get out of that, was that I was not seeing better people in front of me, and I was having defensive conversations from the manosphere to protect the 5-year-old me. So make of that what you will. Anyway, a lot of guys are just kind of letting good opportunities go by, not just in women, but friends and life and enjoying life. Making their lives, as I say, more color than black and white, simply because of their defensive posture. Learn from this stuff. Learn from the science, and learn especially from your own empirical experience, especially where you're at fault, which is a lot of the topic of this stream. Take as much extreme responsibility as you can and ownership. Objective, not don't excuse women, don't let people walk all over you, things like that. But where you can, do it, because you will own much of your life. You will have the steering wheel. You will be used to always putting the steering wheel on the direction you're steering your life. When you're in a conversation, you will be more you, because you're steering the conversation with other people with your own vocabulary, what you believe. You're always showing up as you. People will always get a sense of who you are. If you're fortunate enough to relate more honestly, and you find a woman you can get along with and she can resemble a friend, she will always get the honest person that's not afraid to speak, that doesn't sort of censor themselves. And as such, you insist on that with her because you are doing it with you. I'm insisting on speaking this way with you guys, and I try my hardest to do that way, with tact, with people in the real world, and especially the people most intimate to me. My woman, my family, and people around me in my life. Because I don't want to compartmentalize and walk on eggshells and figure out, well, look, I have to put on this mask now because I'm in the company of this person, and I know that I can't speak like this and I can't show this side of myself. It may be selfish to say, well, you're being solipsistic, but am I really? I am respectfully and fairly trying to relate as myself. I'm not pushy with other people, but I refuse to put myself beneath other people's like I'm not an actor in someone else's movie. You know, we're jointly involved in this movie. None of us are the director. If you want to look at that metaphor, we're both fair actors in this movie. You're not the director, and I'm not subservient to you, nor vice versa. Relationships are a fair feedback loop, I would say. Crummy VCR says it's all fine and dandy with people doing their own thing, but the real crux is if people can be honest with themselves, can we be meta honest considering how plastic our environment is? I don't know. Well, it depends. It depends on your will. Like how interested are you in this stuff? Is it just kind of BS philosophically interested, like the way like a couple of guys over beer would discuss when they're inebriated, and but then as soon as they're sober, that kind of conversation is kept hidden. The courage to be interested enough to articulate and express that, it's nowhere to be had unless you get like completely smashed. So it's the interest and will to express yourself as one would typically when they're drunk. You know, the honesty that one would when they're drunk. You know, as the cliche goes. Can you do that? Do you have the will to want to do that as much as you can when you're sober and refuse to be drunk? Quasimandias says, well, intensity is an intimacy, but intimacy is always intense. Our only intimacy can last intense. Yeah, and also I think it was you that said in a recent video, and I remembered it, Quas, you said most people out there aren't looking for relationships, they're looking to be stimulated. And I think that's very true today. Everyone's looking for stimulation and to be seen. How can I be seen and stimulated? And how can someone else see and stimulate me? The nuance and the connoisseurship of relating with somebody, and I think Quas would agree with this. It's a lost art. It's poetry. It's story. There's a lot of story. It's for me. There's no surprise why storytelling has really gone downhill, both movies and books and everything. I was trying to watch this like train wreck of a Netflix show because it was just kind of one I just wanted to give a shot. And me and my woman, we switched it off after 10 minutes because it was like watching a continuous YouTube reel, like intense, you know, at 500% speed, like jokes, like pummeling you. And it was, I thought Transformers was like insufferable. Like movies today, there's no still storytelling for us to understand each other as human beings and to learn how to have, to create better stories for ourselves in life because there are none. They are sugared up 100-mile-an-hour speed fests, and you can't make sense of it. You're taken away for a thrill ride of, as you put it, Quas, like stimulation. It's just like stimulant. Egan says, why not just match up all the men who subscribe to your channel with feminine, friendly, appreciated women throughout the world? Call it dating. We cannot. No, thank you. I'm not going to be responsible. I'm actually. There's nothing better than seeing a guy, rise out of the ashes like a phoenix, in the right way, like like the elders that we respect, the stories that we go back to, the stoic writings that guys find timeless. You don't want to coddle people at the same time, but I know what you mean. Like, it would be nice if the world was simpler and you could just, I don't want these women. I don't know where to find them. Just please tell me where I can go, and I will gladly choose sensible women. That's really funny when everyone says, well, you're looking in all the wrong places. And it's like, tell me where, please. I will go wherever you tell me. And then they can't give you an answer. B-Core Ogre says, I abhor the term gaslighting, but a friend commented on a relationship of mine that just ended tonight and used the term. What's your definition? Well, it is a term. What's the actual real definition of the term? Gaslighting. To manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. Yeah, it's a way that people obtusely make you doubt your own judgment. And there's a lot of guys with women today, and I can hardly blame them with the messaging out there. Everything's your fault. Your masculinity's bad, and all this kind of stuff. And I can understand from birth, like it's like old biblical tradition. You're born broken and you're born sinful, and nothing you do can atone for it. Nothing you do can unless you become Christian Grey or super Andrew Tate. Like nothing's going to make you more appealing to women and society. You have to be a superhero. And yeah, look, it is a term. I appreciate that you don't like the term gaslighting, but what's another term? There's another term similar to gaslighting. It's called it's not the same. Yeah, can't think of it. And I don't want to waste your time pondering. Gangsta Elegant, thank you very much for your super chat. If any of you guys, I might miss some of your questions during the stream because there's usually a few hundred people here. And a lot of you guys are just commenting amongst yourselves. But if you want to make sure I read your question live, make sure you super chat me if you really want to. Otherwise, feel free to add 3 yellow emojis before your question, and I'll try and see it. Gangsta Elegant says, your last video you mentioned hot and crazy. Is this inevitable, or can we find hot and reasonable? Is that black PILL, or just should I adjust expectations? Well, sometimes guys can't help it. When you're young, you just go for what is exciting, and you just pray that you dodge the worst of the worst. And, I've dodged the worst of the worst. It's also how you're raised. Some guys just love driving too fast with no brakes. They jump out of airplanes with parachutes and they survive and they feel adrenalized. And some guys get through life and they deal with the consequences of that better than most. Some of us can't deal with the pain of those failures. Some of those guys just brush it off and keep going. It depends on how you're wired. But I think avoiding hot and crazy, I think it's very much your fault when you're older, and there's much less of an excuse. So I give it a pass more, as I mentioned in the video, even myself. I don't kick myself too much when I was younger, and it helps that I dodged a few bullets, but and nothing really bad happened, as in, none of them accidentally got pregnant and things like that. But there's also a very deadening life of just kind of living in a cage in safety and saying, like, nothing can touch me. Yeah, nothing gets in, nothing can come in, but nothing gets out either. You feel nothing. So, yeah, look, don't live in extremes. Learn from the extremes, whether it's the black pill stuff or David Goggins or, the positive sides like Tony Robbins and stuff. Reasonably taken, you can calibrate and cherry pick your life, and they're like buffets. Like, oh, that's a really intense, extreme opinion. That's a good bar of excellence. Like, that's something to kind of put on my plate. I'm not that kind of person. I can't live to that extreme, especially consistently. You might be able to live David Goggins for 1 hour on a particularly good run or an intense motivational workout or something, but you can't habitually be him. And to some degree, a lot of us don't realize it. If you followed his life all week, he's not that intense character 24/7. He has moments where he's contemplating, he's reading, he's sleeping. But if you get him on a certain topic, if he needs to physically express himself or mentally express himself on what he feels is important, yeah, he's David Goggins. But yeah, it's, again, coming back to being more real with who you are. And stop looking at cartoonish extreme examples to kind of snap its fingers and fix your life. Thanks for the super chat, gangster. Yeah, Melee, it's like at work, play the game. Okay, what game? What are the rules? Quaz says, in my opinion, meeting quality women is far from impossible, but they want you to be adept in relating. Can't fake that. There are places they will be, and those relating people won't. Yeah, I noticed I had a much more fun time, and I had much more success with women. When I was younger, objectively speaking, I was genetically like I was fairly good looking, right? I'm not blowing my own horn. I had much better chances, but I had bad luck with women because of my insecurities. I was less look. I'm less good looking now as an older guy, but I found I had better times because I just kind of let go and I wanted to be with a friend. I wanted to have a conversation. I didn't care. I wanted to relate, as Quaz put it. So, you know, women, there's some women that have their looks when they're younger and they squander it. And then when they get older, that's all they've got to work on. You have to have more, not just to differentiate yourself, to sell yourself to someone else as though saying, oh, please accept me. But if you want a really nice feedback loop of relating to someone, you have to practice and become more of that which you want. You know, if I want to have this kind of conversation and love and respect and security and stuff, I need to think it important enough to start practicing it myself. I cannot, like I was younger, rely on my physical attributes and not knowing what to say. And it's not about one-liners, it's being relaxed enough to and being around my friends enough to talk honestly about things, not kind of in a macho way and not talking in a macho way when you go on a date, but getting used to having real conversations with people and just honestly saying what you think. So, and then you just get used to practicing that when you go on a date. And women find it refreshing, not because I'm going on a date with any kind of strategy, but it's because of I'm going on a date just going again to have a fun time relating with a person. It's a person. I don't know them from a bar of soap, you know, but I'm going there looking to have fun relating as me. That's it. Without any agenda, without any kind of lines that without any talking points. I wish I had this insight when I would have crushed it when I was younger. But unfortunately, you're young and naive and you get by well enough with your looks and you just kind of recycle that treadmill until at some point you go, I'm tired of it. It's not working, or I'm still getting the same things, but this does not satisfy anymore. And it's part of the reason when you can't sleep at night and your life turns to gray and it's not black and white, but it should be. This is where you need to, you know, self-reflect and look at doing things better. You can't rely on the autopilot. Crummy VCR says, to the guys out there looking for a partner, ask difficult questions to them and vet questions maybe even you can't answer yourselves. Pathology of people's thinking is paramount. Yes. If there's any question you're worried about asking, I would find that a problem, because I would say I say to learn to speak and think better, because if anything pops up in your head and you think, oh, this is rude, there is always a respectful, civil, and lexically articulate way. Do you see what I'm doing now? I'm doing it in real time. But there is a much less sort of theatrical way of doing it, say on a date, a very normal way of using the vocabulary to approach any subject you want with a girl, like even a touchy one. If you can sense that someone passed away, you don't avoid it. It's in your mind, it sticks out, talk about it. Always be an open gate of being real with how you express yourself and how you insist on relating to people. At your job, you need to maybe put on the suit, but don't say no when you mean yes, and vice versa. Anywhere. You should be able to articulate yourself enough that you find the words to approach and address subjects that are a bit uncomfortable, but you can say them in ways that are beautiful and that convey it in a softer way if that's what you're intending. And equally as well, you can tell a woman to F off if that's what's needed. It's conveying yourself in exactly the way you want to get the relationships you want and to express yourself like, you want to. Regret ruins a guy as well, in that, like, looking in the past and saying, I should have done that, I should have said this, I should have left earlier, I was with the wrong person for too long, and then I met a girl, but I couldn't be with her because I was with this chick, I was married. Don't stay longer than you should in the wrong situation. Being free to experience the right people and the right opportunities, the right jobs, the right moves in life. Regret is just like one of the most awful things for a guy, especially. Quaz says, I would also add most men I meet can barely relate with me, let alone women. Unrelatable women are awful. Yeah. Isn't it strange, Quaz? Like, I noticed there's a lot of people that, unless you're exactly like them, they don't feel comfortable with you. But also, if you're not if you don't have an open-minded interest to know yourself better and enrich yourself better through different kinds of people, like I know with myself, you and I are very different, but I always have really interesting conversations with you where we meet each other halfway, and we're present enough to be able to introduce our own lives. You introduce your seafaring life, and you live on a boat, and you've got all these skills. I enjoyed your not tying little shorts, by the way. Like, you learn all these different things and you have different conversations that sharpen your own life and your own insights. And just so many people don't want to sharpen their own world by experiences with someone else. And I would say, yeah, like, women are the same. Unrelatable women, unrelatable men, just unrelatable people. Not that you don't want to have conversations with people that don't exactly reflect your life, but you're trying to have conversations by banging against a brick wall, and you can barely hear the muffles of someone on the other side, and they refuse to open the doors. So I would give you and I as clear examples. We're very different, but I really enjoy talking to you. But most people, they they're out there looking for mirrors. They are not looking for relationships, to paraphrase Stanislaw Lem in Solaris. Jack Dawes says, there is an evil trick our brains play on us when we are trying to find a relationship. That desire pushes one to become what the other wants, and so we have to fight our own mind continuously. Yeah, but we have to judge and we have to be presently aware of our mind. We can't let our mind speak for us, because a lot of times our mind, which in psychological terms, in therapeutic terms, is called your superego, it's the overbearing parent that dominates you and oftentimes makes you feel bad and saying, you're a loser, you effed up, you're nothing but this, that's why no one will ever love you, blah, blah, blah. Rather than your best friend saying, no, leave him alone, a-hole. Like, you got to care about your friend. So how you have a relationship with your own mind. I think I did a video of this once. We talk a lot about relationships with other people, with women especially, and blame them. But like, the relationship we have if some of our brains that we have relationships with that we think are our friends, if they were our lovers, they would destroy us. They would be a cartoonish, embarrassing partner we would be embarrassed to bring out in public. You'd be embarrassed to talk about or show the relationship you have with your internal dialogue, the way you talk to yourself and how you understand yourself. If this was an actual girlfriend that you had to be arm in arm with and say, yeah, this is my wife or girlfriend or partner. Again, not saying it's easy, but I don't want to quote Richard, but do the work. What piece of advice would you give those of us who have now realized we are going to be alone for the rest of our lives? Are you? Be very careful about very Sith-like black and white decisions you've made right now until the end of time that you're questioning now, like, what do I do now? I've made a decision forever. Well, it's like, if you're worried about it, don't lock the door on that decision. It may be sort of complete now, but don't weld the door shut, man. The fact that you're asking it the way you want, I would say, what do I do now that I've locked the door and thrown away the key? Well, don't lock the door and throw away the key before you know you're absolutely certain. You may want to lock the door temporarily, but keep the key in your pocket. You may want to just close the door, like I've mentioned with relationships. I just closed the door and had enough of them. But I was realistic enough about like where I really sat with the situation that, yeah, I would appreciate the right kind of person coming, but I'm not looking anymore. The door's closed, but it's not locked. So have the internal dialogue that's healthier for you. Hey, Mr. Highway, how you going? He says, people used to have lives and personalities. If you go to a coffee shop to sit and look out the window without your phone, you're a weirdo now. Yeah. Look, I've never spoken to Mr. Highway, but by the way he articulates himself, I have enough experience in sort of being responsible with the way I speak and the kind of people I call friends that I know I would have a good conversation with Mr. Highway if we were to happen to have a coffee one day, if I bumped into him. By the way he speaks and how he presents his ideas in word form, let alone I can imagine he could do it better than 95% of the people out there. So learning how to articulate and think and express yourself, it's just why like everyone kind of admires Jordan Peterson to a degree because of the way how he articulates what he believes and the convictions he has. You don't have to be a Jordan Peterson, but if you can lean in that direction of being as righteous and being able to express that righteousness as beautifully and as confidently as he can without saying, yeah, but the world, no free will human. Well, fine. Until you start believing in yourself, no one else will. It's cliche. I don't mean to come off as Oprah, but Jackdaw says, in order to hold your identity instead of adapt to perceived desires of another, you have to be entirely committed to staying a sort of singular ship on the sea, a pirate black flag. Yes, but make sure you hold that metaphor in a healthy way. Don't get sort of too Pirates of the Caribbean about it. Get more Quasi-Mandias about it. Crummy VCR says, sometimes people use their language unintentionally and cast themselves into darkness. Remember, words are intentions, whether or not you know it or not. What you say matters and on many levels. Yeah, and also, when you get to a point where you feel like you're alone or you've got no friends with you, sometimes you can fall prey to just finding your own mind the only friend you need, but it's not a good friend. That whole lone wolf, but the lone wolf friend you have up here is not a very good one. It wants to lead you off into the woods and watch you die. It really does. And it seems it can seem very kind of mythopoetically kind of romantic in a male sense, like, old stories of heroes, like, wolves going off and slaying the dragon, and we go off and live alone in the cabin, and where we do 50 push-ups every morning, and we kill a deer, and we have a campfire, and we got a dog, and careful that thing doesn't lead you into the darkness to die. Yeah. But unless you're willing to kind of be honest about that. How brave are you willing to be? Are you cartoonishly brave, or are you brave in a way where you don't care what women think? You don't care about having a conversation with someone who doesn't agree with your point of view. You can stand on your own two feet with your own mind, with your own vocabulary, and defend the positions that are right. You can defend the positions that you find admirable, like the Stoics, for instance. So I posed this question on my community tab on my YouTube channel. So keep checking my community tab on my YouTube channel, guys, because I pose a lot of questions that I want to introduce into videos and into these streams. I posed a question relating to this subject and relating to this video that I did. And go ahead and watch it. Put a lot of work into it. It's basically I made this video as a new introduction to my channel, what it's about. and an introduction to my personality and my thinking. But also kind of in terms of like the biggest revelation for me is taking as much honest responsibility and relating to people in the world as sanely and objectively as you can. It's kind of broad and maybe general to most people, but for those of you who want to, who have had enough of just riding the train of crazy society and you'd rather get off and curate your own world, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I asked a question related to this last video. What's a character flaw you've corrected? And of course, the people who think they're perfect and it's all women's fault, they're not going to resonate with this, right? One of the most notable ones was, not unsurprisingly, the deep thinking guy Pete, who refused to invite to gatherings. He said, sooner or later, the common denominator, myself, became a big elephant in the room that was impossible to ignore. Couldn't blame others anymore. Had to make changes. Keeping up with the status quo is the equivalent of screaming through a soundproof two-way mirror. Nobody sees, hears, or cares. I reiterate that. Nobody sees, hears, or cares. I noticed this with my own channel, guys. The more I just do what I feel like doing, I don't really care about what people think of my videos. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I care and respect the people that respect me. But just the liberating feeling of knowing that really at the end of the day, no one cares. No one cared that I didn't upload for 2 weeks. I thought people were going to get upset. And I just realized that I could take as long as I want with my videos. No one cares. They really don't. And Pete continues, so stop banging on the glass and looking around on your side of things. Well put. No one cares. Do what's right. Live your life. Say what you think. Have some low-level, everyday pedestrian courage, guys. Nothing's going to happen. The best things will happen. Just using pedestrian courage. Don't go for heroic courage, because that's the excuse of not doing anything. Because very few of us are, a Perseus out there. Super chat. Luciano, thank you very much for your super chat. He says, great vid idea request related to this topic. Where do most of you men get your ideas of masculinity from? Movies, movie games, PUAs, social media? I would say, I can only speak from my experience, but I get most of the feedback of curating my ethics and what I think about morals and life and women and relationships from my own empirical experience in life. So my own experience then, because that's the final and biggest filter of everything I think to be true and what I think is right and works for me. All the other stuff below that is more sensible stuff like, other people's experience. Do they relate? Are they realistically aligned? Do they happen over and over again? Are they repeatable? Okay, this is a predictable pattern. It happens commonly out there. What are more women like out there? What's the data like? How many women end relationships? What do women say typically on dates? What do people realize as cliches? What do women like on dates? What don't they like? What do men say? What can't they say? What do men have to suffer in quiet desperation? What do we wish we didn't have to suffer? All of that stuff. So you mix all that in your soup, but then the final filter is what you think, what makes sense for you. Am I an introvert? The final filter is me. The final filter of what works in my personal life and what I choose is not what other men say, is not what the divorce stats are. It's not what women want. It's, I consider all of that, and then the final filter, the final program that spits out the final result of what I think, say, and choose is my experience, what I think, what I want. Am I an introvert? My lifestyle. Do I like blondes over redheads, over brunettes, over whatever? What race do I prefer? Does she have character traits that are overwhelmingly like noble and like I haven't found in anyone else and I really respect? Does she have virtues that eclipse other women of her gender? Those things that you personally value, and then you know why you choose to commit to her, why you love her, why you commit to her. And it's the same with jobs. Who am I? What can I tolerate? How much of the HR BS, PC, rubbish, woke garbage out there can I tolerate? The final filter is you and your empirical experience. So all the other stuff is useful to filter through the final program, the final gatekeeper of what do you want. Too many people filter it through what is right objectively. What is right objectively should come before what you think is right. You're the final guide in deciding what you're going to choose in the end. Like, for instance, like we could talk about cars, getting A to B, but then there's a difference. Are you into cars? What kind of cars do you prefer? Do you subjectively choose this car over that car? Is it because you respect your father and this is the car he had, so you want to keep that car? Whatever it is, you know? So I think we just discount our own subjective needs and wants and we don't talk about them. We're looking for the logical way to live life, the way we would plant seeds in a certain season. Well, when do I need to plant carrots? So that's not a subjective opinion. That's an objective right or wrong. But who do I choose? Like, I want to find one person to be with. Please, everyone, tell me who. Like, they can give you the groundwork and foundations, but in the end, the person you pick is completely subjectively your decision. Anyway, back to my question. My question was this, right? Some of the feedback, the comments under this question in my comment section, my community tab of my YouTube channel, LatQCD92 said, no longer needing validation of approval for others. That's one flaw he corrected. I used to be obsessed with performance and trying to get recognition for my work, but I've since then started to chill out and no longer need that kind of recognition. I'm the only one that needs to value what I do. Brad MC 81 says, lack of introspection. My first port of call was to previously look for something external to blame. That's very familiar with a lot of us, me included, when I was younger. He continues, that shifted into first looking at myself and what I've contributed to the situation. I usually always find there's something I could have done better or should have done at all. It's amazing how many guys, the more you blame everything and everyone except for you, I think to me, it suggests to the degree that you're invisible in the relationships you choose and have and you operate in. So there's no point saying she took over the whole relationship, it was all about her, where you make yourself invisible. And then you say, well, poor me. Well, it's like you care so little about yourself, and then you require the women to value something that's invisible there that you made invisible. You don't care anything about yourself, but you want the world to care about you. It's another example in a Freudian sense that guys want their girlfriends to be too much a replacement of their mothers or what their mothers never gave them. How long has this blabbing stream of mine been going? Nearly an hour. All right. Any last questions or super chats, guys? Make sure you either super chat me if you're here live, and I'll read it before the stream ends, or put 3 yellow brightly colored emojis if you want to ask me a question before we end the stream. And by that, I mean a question like Quaz post here. He put 3 yellow smiley faces, or just put 3 yellow circles. Anyway. Yeah, on to some more of the responses. Sir Sol said, when I asked the question, what's a character flaw you may have corrected? And don't forget, my question here isn't to lay blame on people. It's to make your life better going forward, rather than crossing your fingers and relying on luck that the next girl will treat you better or the next job will magically fit you. I want us to stop relying on magic and start more relying on intentionally making decisions that will result in more predictable outcomes that we would rather have, rather than saying all of life is this, just because the end of it is like this, the where and when. So Sol says, being a know-it-all, it got so bad my niece would greet me with actually and then chuckle. That was a wake-up call. Yeah. Being too pessimistic and more optimistic. Yeah. Me too. That was one that I funnily enough, I switched that dial more from one side to the other. Athena Adventure says, having my kindness exploited, I've learned to say no. Being able to discern what is good for you and what is good for them is a powerful tool to have at your disposal. Sometimes you just have to go with your gut instinct. David P., longtime member. Hi, David. He says, standing up for myself, calling people out if and when they treat me poorly, depending on who they are and what they've done. I'll give them a second chance, but if they blow that, I cut contact. Also expecting more from my partner, not settling for less just to get some bedroom fun. That's an important thing that thanks for the super chat, Luciano. I'll read your comment out in a second. One thing that I want to mention in relation to David's comment is that, let me see. I lost my train of thought for a second. Standing up for myself, calling people out when they treat me poorly. Give them a second chance, but if they blow that, I cut contact. Also expecting more from my partner. Yeah, the expectations of people. I keep saying to guys, have more needs of women, because guys go in so stoic, not letting their women do anything and not insisting they do any feminine gestures or any archetypical feminine things that you yourself would appreciate. I've said before, I'm a much better cook than my woman, than almost any woman I've been with. But when I'm with someone, I insist on them showing me just the way I show them with acts, the ways I can appreciate. I don't need her to make me the food exactly the way I want. I'm not that specific. I want her to show me that she cares enough by making me the meal that I like, that she tries, that she wants to show me affection in that way. So make me my favorite meal less better than I can make it, or less better than we have it at a restaurant. I don't care. I'll love it more than my meal or the restaurant, simply because of your effort and you wanting to sort of do that. Words mean very nothing. If it's all words, it's a lot of BS. It's a lot of theatrics. It needs to be translated into practice, which means, yeah, showing someone. Words are cheap. Luciano, thank you for the super chat. He says, one aspect I improved on this is intellectual humility. Yes, don't get too sort of caught up and puffing your chest out intellectually and like, being lexically articulate, like I'm doing it now, like looking for beautiful words to make yourself stand out and beat your chest. If you realize you're doing them and you're overinflating yourself and you're doing them as diverting attention and things like that, just be direct. If you can use beautiful language, use it, but be direct. Don't obfuscate the directness of what you're trying to get to. And Luciano also, again, thanks again for the super chat. He said, the reason I used to have such a huge urge to always be right and still do innately to this day is because our society treats intelligence as a status tool as opposed to an actual virtue. That's a very good point. Now it's anything that will get likes and get you seen and get you noticed and get you subscribers, get you views, stimulation, as was discussed earlier, but not in and of itself intelligence as a means to discern the truth, to have a conversation where we can get to something better, where we can improve the conversation. No, we'll use the most intelligent saying that someone said and just repeat it, not discuss it, not try and talk like them and improve the conversation. So yeah, I agree. Intelligence is a status tool and not an actual virtue anymore. Well put. Was there any other comments? Two Dogs said, taming my negative outlook on life and how I respond to it by reflecting on things that I'm grateful for when those negative thoughts start to arise. Yep, yeah, I've relayed all the comments. Any last comments, guys? Let's wrap it up. This was a very intense stream. Maybe there's fumes left over from the last video I did, which was fairly intense as well. Let me know also under the last video whether you appreciate those kind of videos, because I pushed myself in doing a very intense, fun video and also learning a few new editing tricks because I really enjoy editing. Let me know how much of that is a bit too much for your taste, and then I think most people like a mix of both. They like the kind of interesting editing, but also they appreciate me sitting down and just talking directly a bit more rather than being kind of in the background so much. So let me know your thoughts under the video in terms of the way it was done. Crummy VCR, he says, that's a change of pace with questions. I'd figure I ask a simpler question. How is human actually doing these days? Thank you for asking. I'm doing good. I'm doing well. And And I think also it's like how much I practice wanting to, I talk about being interested in this stuff, not just waiting around for inspiration, not waiting around for to be motivated and things like that. But if it mattered to you yesterday when you're inspired, remember to give it the respect that it matters again today. And even if you don't feel like it, talk that way. You have a dog, you've got to feed it. You love being with your dog yesterday, and today you can't be bothered, you're lazy, and your dog's looking up at you, wagging its tail. That's the way you should be with the things that matter to you, with your ethics and your principle. They're the loyal, wagging dog that yesterday, when you're motivated and full of life, you were, on the same page with your dog. But then sometimes the things that are important to you are like your best friend, your dog, wagging its tail, and you're ignoring it and you can't be bothered and you don't want to feed it. You have to feed what's important to you. So some days you just start the engine. Like every night before a stream, I'm very resistant. I just want to go to bed and I just want to wake up not having the pressure of a stream. But every single time I just set everything up quickly and do what I have to do. As soon as I switch this camera on and hang out with you guys and start sort of getting the engine going and talking about what's important to me, I have a ball doing this. So just learn to do learn to love the things that are important to you. Don't just say you do. Give them, like, pat your best friend, like feed your dog. Like, I don't care how you feel. Do what you're supposed to do. If you're in a relationship, do what your girl reasonably would expect, and don't just think that it's a one-way street to you, just like a lot of women think relationships are one-way streets to them. Speak honestly and communicate who you are. Don't apologize. Don't edit yourself just to be with a hot, incompatible mess for as long as possible and say, well, it's okay. This is just a holiday. And then before you know it, you've just been on continual holidays with women for decades, and you don't know how to relate to a woman intimately for a long period of time. If all you've done is for decades, you've consumed like, Instagram, like YouTube reels and stories, 15-second sugar hits, and you say, oh yeah, in 20 years I'll stop. I'll be ready for a real relationship. I'll be ready to read War and Peace or Dostoevsky when I'm 40 or 50. Then I'll be ready. You think so? I don't think so. You're only used to this, and you will have no clue how to do the right thing, even if you want to, and it'll mentally eat you alive because you won't know how to do it. Your plasticity is hardened. You're setting concrete, and you are going to be that person later on, and you can blame the world, and you can be the victim. But face your fears, do what you know you have to do. I don't care if this is me talking to me, right? If you guys get triggered, I don't care. But I'm talking to like-minded people. If you love your dog, feed your dog. I don't care how you feel today. Your dog loves you. That's the same with what's important to you. That's the same with the person you say you love, or the woman you want, or the job you want, or whatever. I don't care how you feel. If you know in your private moments when you're motivated what's important, when the opportunity comes to enact what's important to you, so it's not just words, feed your dog, love what's important to you, speak that way as well. So with that, I think that's a good way to end things. And yeah, just think about what's a character flaw you've corrected so your life is better. It's nothing to do with women. And what's easier now because you've corrected a personal flaw. So just have a think about it, guys. And I'll catch you in the next video. Give me a like. Show my last video some love, because I put a lot of work into it. Let me know your thoughts below. If you've got a microphone, jump on my Gilded server. A couple of you guys, it's open 24/7. You can jump on there with a microphone. Give me a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. The YouTube algorithm loves it, but otherwise my videos are free. And feel free to join the channel. And that way you'll be able to, if you want to ask me a direct question and I'll answer it every time live, you'll be able to ask it live and I'll be able to see it. So anyway, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good weekend, and bye.